So as we take a breath into this moment, settling in, allowing ourselves to fully arrive, go ahead and just take another breath. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes or lowering your gaze, perhaps finding a spot just before you to gaze upon, or even the candles that are on the screen, but to turn within, to let the chair support you, to feel your legs become heavy, allowing the shoulders to fall away from the ears. Let your forehead smooth. Perhaps place a smile on your lips, not to cover up over anything, but to set that intention of a smile. Taking another breath and allowing yourself to take that elevator ride from your head into your heart. And as your breath finds its own perfect rhythm, letting your heart open just a little bit more so that every in-breath comes in through the heart. And every out-breath allows that love that we breathe in to fill us, to anchor us. So again, breathing in through the heart, allowing love to fill you, and exhaling, allowing that love to be anchored deep within you. And in this moment, we bring to mind somebody that we care deeply about. Somebody that we have a heart connection with. Go ahead and visualize them. Imagine them in front of you right now. And let your heart open even more, perhaps as a waterfall, allowing your love to flow from your heart to them. Feeling the gratitude that you have for this person. Feeling that love, the love and kindness grow. So that the love within your heart and your heart space has expanded. And as that person fades, just sitting within that vibration, that frequency of love. And bringing another person that you care about, perhaps a pet. And again, letting your heart light, that heart loving kindness expand even further, more encompassing as you connect with that person, letting your gratitude grow. And as that person, pet fades, maybe there is a situation, something that you are so grateful for, a blessing that has come into your life. And again, allowing your heart to open even wider in gratitude. So that now the love that you are feeling and experiencing expands to at least 10 feet around you. As you are so grateful for these individuals and the situation that have reminded you of what love is. And in your expression of love, reminding you that that is what you are, that you are love, that you are here to express that love on earth. And yet, perhaps there's someone in your life that you are right now having difficulty with or a challenge with. And yet, as you bring them into your sphere of love, allowing them to also be encompassed by, wrapped like a blanket in the love that you are emanating now. Perhaps setting that intention for the highest good for all involved. And as we keep our hearts open, we do so bringing in the names of the prayers that are in this room, on the hearts and minds of everyone here, in your prayer box. As we allow love to fill this space, we allow it to overflow into the city of Prescott. We see it and feel it as it expands into the state of Arizona, the western United States, throughout the U.S., and even the world, so that where there were hurting hearts, they are now lifted up. Where there was darkness, there's now light. And we allow this love to wrap around the world and then back to us, where we wrap ourselves up in that love. Again, knowing and affirming that everything is unfolding for the highest good, for our soul and the souls in our lives, that all is well. So we take a moment to sit knowing all is well. And knowing this, we come back to our breath, in which we breathe in love through the heart, and we exhale through the heart. And again, we breathe in through the heart, and we exhale through the heart. Giving thanks for moments like this, connecting to our true selves, our divine nature. Knowing that we can hand it all over as we walk in that power of the presence. A presence of love and peace and wisdom that we are and that surrounds us. So knowing all is well and all is good, we start to wiggle our fingers and our toes. We take a rejuvenating breath. We give thanks. We say amen. And as we say amen, that meaning we now move forward in this truth that we know. Amen. And so it is. And so we slowly open our eyes, awake, giving great gratitude for these moments. And so it is. Amen. Well, hello, Prescott. How are you all today? Yeah, it's a beautiful weekend, yes? It is. Well, thank you for having me. I haven't been here since, I think I figured out it was around 2017, so it's been a couple years. You know, you do the math, it turns out that's 8 years ago. Who knew? So it's been a while. I was the regional consultant for Uniteens and YOU ministry. That's our middle school and high school ministries in Unity. And so I got to go around and see a lot of different churches, and I was here at Prescott a few times, and I just think it's a lovely community. It's a beautiful area, and when we were driving in, I saw a lot of change in your city. You had a lot of change. Yeah. And that fits right into what I'm talking about today, which is, you know, everything is our teacher, because there's a lot of change going on right now. I don't know if you've noticed it. Yeah, a lot of change in the world. Maybe in your life. Sometimes our life has a lot of change. In your church, there's change, right? with Reverend Richard Rogers leaving. He was going to spoil my news that I've known Richard Rogers since I was about 14 years old. So just a couple years ago. So we've known each other for quite a while over the years. He was the first one, actually, as a teenager. He said to me, because he was the regional consultant at the time, and he said, "You should be in leadership." So I blame him for being up here right now. Yeah, that does get applause. Yeah. So there's a lot of change. And we don't like changes. They bring up challenges. We have challenges also in our life, but change and challenges we don't like because we like to be safe. Our brains like to be safe. Our brains like routines and rituals. That's what makes our brains feel like I'm safe. Change and challenges go against that, right? So we're trying to have these routines that are predictable, and yet change, and I hate to break it to you, but change is inevitable, right? We see it in nature also. In nature, we see the seasons change. We see a plant that grows, and then it dies, and then a new bloom comes up again. And we know that sometimes life just lifes? Life just lifes all over you, right? So we can approach the inevitable change and challenges in two ways. Either by struggling, stomping our feet, throwing a fit, right? Working against it, resisting it. Or we can flow with it and we can learn from it. And so I bet here, Union Prescott, most of you probably want to flow with it versus against it. Am I right? Right. I mean, that's what we say, right? And it's not always easy. Yeah. So if the choice is to grow through the challenges in life, then the question starts to become, how can I use this situation for a spiritual awakening? How can I use this situation for my greatest spiritual and personal awareness and transformation? And that leads us, again, to the foundation for today's talk, which is everything, and I'll add, everyone is my teacher. And much of today's talk is inspired by Robert Brummett's book, Finding Yourself in Transition. Anyone read that one? Oh, man. Okay, there's going to be a rush at the bookstore afterwards. This is a fantastic book, a great study together, too. And he has an entire chapter called Everything is My Teacher, meaning every person, every place, every object, every event, every experience in life is a potential teacher. Everything. And in unity, as we saw earlier, right, that we teach that there's one presence and one power in the universe and in our lives, God the good, also known as the love and wisdom that underlies all of existence. Therefore, if the presence and power is truly present everywhere, then it's present in everything. And if this presence and power is expressing as each one of us, then it's expressing through everyone. Robert Brummett writes, the spiritual journey is not a journey of becoming something we are not. It's a journey of uncovering and discovering the truth of who we already are. And it's really through those life's challenges that we do the most uncovering, that we do the most accelerated uncovering, right? And it's so fascinating because he points out in the book, and when I read this quite a few years ago, I thought it was kind of a mind-opening thought here, in that with all change, it actually starts with the ending. All change starts with the ending. And then there's a transition time, which he calls the void. And then, lastly, there's the new beginning. So if you think about it, you're in great health, and then something happens, a health challenge happens. There's the end of that health, and then you're in the in-between. Maybe you're finding doctors, physical therapy, whatever it is, and then a new beginning. Or the same thing with a job or a relationship, right? It ends, There's that in-between, the void that feels disconcerting, like you've just gone through an earthquake. And then there's the new beginning. And it's these transitions, these changings, those endings, the uncertain middles, the new beginnings, they challenge us, they stretch us. And ultimately, they invite us to deepen into our truest selves, into our divine nature, into our divine identities. So for myself, I have gone through a lot of change over the last 18 months. We became empty nesters. One of our sons in Florida, the other one's in college in California. We sold our home in California of over 18 years, just February of last year, moving away from friends and family and support groups there to move to Phoenix. Then 11 months later, we moved to another house in Scottsdale. So that was 2 moves in 11 months. Don't recommend it. Don't do it. And in that time, I started a new job and role there at Unity of Phoenix. So there was some change there, going from a senior minister of a small church, associate minister, to a really large church. That was a change. There have been changes within our family, and I too am in the world, and so there's changes going on in the world as well. The collective experience. And so all of that in a very compact time. So I speak today as someone who's really literally walking with you in this idea of embracing change and challenge as a teacher. And I'm learning and relearning that every experience, especially those uncomfortable ones, I know we don't want to hear that, but especially the uncomfortable ones, they carry a lesson that can be part of my spiritual growth. That in every person, my soul's evolution, my soul's expansion is right there. If I allow myself to open up to, what is this trying to teach me? What is the growth opportunity? So the intention really becomes to look at everything as growth opportunity, spiritual awakening, because ultimately we are here to express love. We're all here to be emissaries of love. That is our purpose. That's what we're here to do. And ooh, that middle, ooh, that void, that doesn't feel good. It's challenging. It's where the old has fallen away, but the new hasn't really emerged or shown itself yet. It's uncomfortable, it's disorienting, it's frightening, it's scary, it's nerve-wracking, because the void is where that transformation happens. We'd like to skip over it, but that's where the transformation really happens. Robert Brummett writes, the ending is not the enemy, it's the gateway. And the void is not a punishment, it's the space in which the soul expands. Isn't that juicy? It's the space where the soul expands. Yet, in our culture, we tend to want to just avoid that middle space. I would say even in Unity, right? We just want to say, nope, I'm just going to sit in my meditation on my meditation pillow and just be positive. I don't want to feel the feelings, that uncomfortable middle. We want to jump right from loss to lesson, from breakdown to breakthrough, right? But the real growth doesn't work that way. How we learn doesn't work that way. Transformation is not an intellectual event. It's not a spiritual bypassing event. It really is something we can't rush through. Transformation is about living through with a conscious and open heart. And if we are conscious of it, of challenges, changes, transformation, when we allow ourselves to be aware and awake, then everything becomes our teacher. If we're willing to be in that discomfort and allow it to be. You know, I read an article about Oprah a few years ago, and it was really powerful because usually we just think of Oprah as being just really successful, right? We just see her at the end of the game, right? Here where she's got her show and her podcast now and everything else. But she actually started out with a really, really terrible beginning to her life. She was born to teenage parents who were never together. She was raised by her grandmother. Between the ages of 9 and 14, she was sexually abused by family members. She did get pregnant by one of them. She had the baby. It died 2 days later. And within all of that, she's very intelligent. She skipped 2 grades in school. And so here she is, this very intelligent young woman, and dealing with all of this and not having the support. And yet, here we see her now as so successful. And here's what she wrote about it. She said, "I would like to thank the people who've brought me those dark moments when I felt most wounded and betrayed. You have been my greatest teachers." Wow. That everything and everyone is my teacher. So some individuals, of course, in our lives teach us about the beauty of life, the joy, the laughter, that deep heart connection. Some individuals teach us about a culture or a food or a skill or a hobby and interest, and that enriches our lives and our intellects. Some people teach us how to understand spiritual concepts so that we can apply them to our lives, so that we can expand our consciousness and therefore find more peace and joy in our lives. And then some people in our lives have taught us how to forgive. They've taught us that forgiveness is important if we want to be free. Some individuals teach us that, how do I react in times of conflict or disagreement? Some individuals teach us how we do react when someone's unkind to us. There are situations in our lives that teach us how to walk through challenges with grace. And there are situations that teach us that we are resilient, that we have that spiritual power of resilience, of strength. I know it's here somewhere, right? Strength. It's one of our 12 powers. So in the end, everything and everyone is my teacher. That everything that happens in our lives is offering us information about our beliefs, about our patterns, our fears, our growing edge. So in order to receive the information that this situation or this person is offering to us, it's important that we get quiet and that we listen to that still small voice, to that higher power, to the universe, to God. And sometimes that feedback will be subtle. It's a restless feeling, a gentle nudge, an intuitive whisper. And other times, it's real loud and it feels like we've been hit by a spiritual 2x4. And that's usually when we haven't really been listening and it's trying to get our attention. But what it really is asking of us is to ask ourselves, what am I asking to be in this moment? What am I asking to be in this moment? How am I showing up in the world? What am I being asked to be and to express in the world? In my world. We get quiet and we listen. We go from resistance to curiosity. There's been times, I don't know if anyone else has done this, where I've found myself resisting a conversation. Right? There's someone you know there's some tension there. Everything in me wanted to avoid it. I was frustrated, I was hurt. In all honesty, I probably had some self-righteousness around it. But I've learned to pause. The power of the pause. The power to take a breath and then ask myself, what if this moment is my teacher? What if this person is showing me something about myself that I need to see? Not to shame me, not to beat ourselves up. We do that plenty already. But really to look at what new version of me is wanting to emerge here. What new version of me is wanting to emerge here? So shifting from resistance to curiosity, and that opens up something within us. The conversation may not be easy, but it becomes sacred. It becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, I can see both, wow, look at my growth, and, there's still part of me that's a work in progress. That's okay, we're works in progress. That's okay. As long as I can still observe, am I reacting from an old wound, old programming, an old fear? And now I see these moments as an invitation to be in that moment with more grace, with an open heart, to remember my connection, our oneness, our connection to each other and the allness. So in looking at everything as our teacher, I realize there's 4 tools or ideas to help us see that everything's our teacher. 1, to slow down and to notice. Before we can even receive a lesson, we have to notice that one is being offered. That means we have to be present. Most of us, we're moving so fast, right? We're moving so fast through life, physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. Let me take the next class, and the next class, and the next class, right? How spiritual can I get faster? But it's about slowing down so that we don't miss the whisper, so we don't miss the invitation. So the first practice is to slow down, pay attention, and asking, what's this moment asking of me? What is being mirrored back to me in this interaction? Where am I reacting from fear or an old story instead of responding from love and knowing that there's only one power and one presence? It's about being awake. There's a great story that goes that Siddhartha, when he reached enlightenment after being under the Bodhi tree for 45 days in silence and meditation, and then he became known as the Buddha, the enlightened one. And there was a group around him, and one person asked, "Are you a god?" And he said, "No." And someone then said, "Are you a man?" And he replied, "No." And they were all very puzzled, and they said, "Well, if you're not a god and you're not a man, then what are you?" And he answered, "I'm awake." So being awake to the challenges and the changes that come as teachers to enrich our lives. And with that, number 2, the second tool is to welcome the difficult teachers. That one's not fun, and it's difficult. But our greatest teachers come in the form of the people and the situations we tend to resist. The ones that trigger us, the ones that annoy us, the ones that confuse us, the ones that betray us, the ones that have hurt our feelings. And I want you to make sure you hear this isn't about staying in a harmful situation. Don't stay in a harmful situation. Boundaries are part of our wisdom. Boundaries are part of our spiritual discernment. And we can do this work even as we set those boundaries. And so even with those boundaries, we can ask, what is this person teaching me about my own growing edge? What am I still bumping up against? Where can I still stretch? And if I'm having conflict with someone, it means I've forgotten my own true identity, my divine identity. It means I'm out of connection. And that comes from fear. And now fear usually shows up as our need to be right, or our need to control the situation. Because in our mind and in our culture, we look at being right and being in control as being special or important or correct or the authority figure. But as soon as I take the focus away from connection and put it on me, I can't learn anymore. So the goal here really is to listen. What if we listened? What if we truly listened? What if we tried to connect with the other person? What if we even entertained the idea, and what if I'm wrong? Or what if I don't have all the information? Or maybe there's room for another viewpoint or another way of doing this, and maybe I don't know that yet. Maybe I don't understand that yet. It means inviting in humility. So as Robert Brummett says, he says, I know I'm not the center of the universe. I don't have all the answers. And it doesn't make me bad or wrong. It just simply means I have more to learn. It can simply mean we just have more to learn. So again, to pause, to breathe, and to consciously open up our hearts and be the divine on earth. Act as an expression of the God that you are, that we sang about earlier, right? Be the hands of God on earth. Be the eyes. Be the voice of God on earth. So that comes from a heart-centered place. Is this teaching me how to soften? Is this teaching me to speak up? Is it teaching me to trust? Is it teaching me how to be the peace that I am wanting to see in the world? If I want to see peace in the world, then how can I show up and be the peace I want to see in the world? So the outer teacher, although it might be rough, is really that inner transformation that can be really deep and really liberating for us. And then a third tool, honor the void. Again, we have to honor that in between, the seasons of uncertainty, the seasons of unknowing. And I know as you look for a new minister, you're sitting in that too, even as a church community, right? That's not comfortable. But the void is really where that old self is dissolving and something new hasn't fully arrived, but it is. And it's also that void, that in between is that space where it's really easy to want to numb out, to fix it, to force clarity, just to put a peg in there, right? But it's fertile ground. This time of the void, it's fertile ground for soul growth, for yourself in your life, and even as a church community. It's fertile ground for soul growth. We live in a quick fix culture, and yet transition and change is a process. Working through a conflict and a challenge is a process. So we, just like nature takes time to harmonize with the natural flow of a new way of life, a new way of being. A stream takes time to cut through the rocks and the sand to carve a new path, and then it flows. The same thing with us. We can take time to integrate what we've learned. Change takes time, and then we flow. So as Brummett says, the void is where we are unmade so we can be remade. So during the time of the void, of the uncertain parts, that's, instead of rushing it, we bless it. We light a candle, we take a walk, we sit in silence, we breathe into the discomfort, and we whisper, I trust this space. I trust what's unfolding. Will you say that with me? I trust this space. I trust what's unfolding. Yeah, let's say that again. I trust this space. I trust what's unfolding. Yeah. And then the fourth tool, if you will, is to keep a soul journal. It could be written, it could be on your notes app, but really starting to record the lessons that life is offering to you, both small and large, and looking at, what did I learn from this interaction today? What emotion rose up, and what was that trying to tell me? And where did I show up differently with more love than I did before, than I have in the past? What resistance did I meet, and what did it reveal to me? Because as we write down the observations, we don't keep track of how well we do, of how much we've grown. But when we write it down, we actually get to look at, wow, there's been a lot of spiritual growth here. There's been a lot of emotional growth here. I have more clarity. You start to notice the patterns, the invitations, and the progress. Your life is a sacred journey. Your soul is a patient, persistent teacher. So take notes and acknowledge your progress. So as we live into this idea of everything and everyone is my teacher, the question is not, what is life trying to teach me? But rather, am I willing to be taught? Am I willing to be taught? Am I willing to let each person, each moment, each transition become an opening through which Spirit and the divine others shape me? Am I willing to be an opening in which I am the hands and the feet and the eyes and the voice of God, of that loving presence? Am I willing to let tension stretch me, the silence speak to me, still me? Am I willing to let my heartbreak soften me or the joy expand me? Because when we say yes, and we got to say yes again and again, we find that we're not merely surviving our transitions and our changes and our challenges, but we are being transformed by them. We're not being undone, we're being remade. So the invitation today is to walk gently through the sacred classroom of your life. Walk gently through the sacred classroom of your life. See each moment, especially the unexpected ones, as holy ground. To allow your heart to stay open. To allow your heart to stay open and teachable. And to trust that your life is unfolding with deep wisdom, with perfect timing, with infinite love. Because truly infinite love is what you are. It's who you've come here to be. I'm here to remind you of that. So be that, my friends. That's what you are. You are love. And so thank you so much for allowing me, inviting me into your spiritual community today. And I wish you all a beautiful rest of your Memorial Day weekend. Blessings, everyone.